I'm 31 and work as an industrial engineer at a manufacturing plant, one of 3 women in a department of 40 men. My childhood was unremarkable in the best way possible. I have 3 older sisters who I got along with fine, though we were never the type to call each other every day or share our deepest secrets. Extended family lived about 4 hours across the state, so we mainly connected during major holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and maybe a random summer barbecue here and there. Everything was normal, comfortable, safe. In 2014, I was 22, fresh out of college with my engineering degree, living in my first real apartment. I remember that night so clearly. I was on a video call with some college friends, playing this co-op game we'd been obsessed with for months. We were laughing, trash-talking each other, completely absorbed in the game. My phone buzzed on the desk beside me. Mom. I glanced at it, considered answering, but we'd literally just talked 2 days before. I let it ring through to voicemail. 30 seconds later, it buzzed again. Same name. Mom. My stomach dropped hard. Before I go any further, drop a comment right now and tell me, where are you watching from? Because what happened next destroyed my entire life for almost 10 years. In our family, we had this unwritten rule. If someone called you twice in a row, back to back like that, it meant emergency. Someone died level emergency. Heart attack, car accident, something catastrophic. I felt my hands go cold as I muted my microphone and told my friends I'd be right back. I had no idea I wouldn't log back into that game for weeks. I answered the phone, and the first thing I heard was chaos. Not normal family background noise, this was raw, ugly screaming. Multiple voices overlapping, someone crying, someone yelling. My heart was hammering. Then I heard movement, like my mom was walking, and suddenly a door slammed and everything went quiet except for her ragged breathing. Mom? My voice came out smaller than I intended. What's wrong? What's happening? She was crying. Not the soft, gentle crying you do at weddings. This was the kind of crying that sounds like drowning. Alicia, she managed to choke out. I need you to be honest with me about something. About what? I was standing now, pacing my tiny apartment, still hearing my friends' muffled voices through my laptop speakers. About Sophia. Sophia. My cousin on my mom's side. 7 years younger than me, which made her 15 at the time. I hadn't seen Sophia in probably 3 or 4 years. We used to play together at family gatherings when she was little, but as she got older and I went to college, we just naturally drifted. She was just a kid. A distant memory of someone running around at Christmas parties. What about Sophia? I asked, genuinely confused. My mind was racing through possibilities. Was she hurt? Sick? What could possibly be happening that involved me? And then my mother said the words that would haunt me for the next decade. She told your sister Emma that when she was 9 years old, you came into your bedroom where she was playing and touched her inappropriately. Under her clothes. That you kissed her. My mom's voice cracked completely. She said you sexually assaulted her. The room tilted. I mean that literally, my vision actually shifted like the floor had dropped out from under me. The words didn't make sense. They were sounds without meaning, like someone speaking a foreign language. I opened my mouth but nothing came out. My brain was screaming that this had to be some kind of test, some horrible joke, some nightmare I was about to wake up from. What? It was the only word I could form. Sophia told Emma everything last week. Emma told me today. She gave such detailed descriptions, Alicia. She described your old bedroom. She remembered what you were wearing. She said, my mom broke down completely, sobbing so hard I couldn't understand the next few words. Mom. My voice was stronger now, adrenaline kicking in. Mom, that never happened. That never fucking happened. Then why would she say it? My mom's voice turned sharp, almost accusatory. Why would she describe it so clearly? Why would she remember specific details if it didn't happen? I don't know. But I didn't do it. I would never, Mom, you know me. You know I would never. She's just a girl, Alicia. She's 15 years old. Why would she lie about something like this? I'm your daughter. The words ripped out of me. I'm your daughter and I'm telling you the truth. But I could hear it in her voice. She'd already decided. Somewhere between Sophia telling Emma and Emma telling my mom and my mom calling me, the verdict had been reached. Guilty. No trial. No investigation. Just guilty. She wouldn't lie about this, my mom said again, and there was something final in her voice that made my blood turn to ice. You need to stay away from this family until we figure this out. Mom, please. The line went dead. I stood there in my apartment, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to silence. Behind me, my laptop was still glowing with the game, my character probably dead by now, my friends probably wondering where I went. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my body. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. My phone buzzed. Text message. Emma, my oldest sister. I can't believe you did that to a child. Don't ever contact me again. Then another buzz. Sarah, my second oldest sister. You're disgusting. Stay away from our family. I tried to call Emma. Straight to voicemail, not the normal voicemail, but the automated one that means you've been blocked. I tried Sarah. Same thing. I tried my third sister, Rachel. The call didn't even ring. Just went straight to that automated voice. Another text from my parents. A joint message from both of them. We need time to process this. Respect our space. Do not contact us again. And then the real panic set in. Because this wasn't going to be a conversation. This wasn't going to be a misunderstanding we could clear up. They'd made their decision in the span of a few hours, and I was already convicted. I spent the next 6 hours calling everyone. My dad's cell. My aunt, Sophia's mom. My uncle. Every family member whose number I had. Some calls went to voicemail. Some rang endlessly. Some were just that flat, automated rejection. I sent texts pleading with them to just talk to me, to let me explain. The messages turned green. Undelivered. They were blocking me in real time, one by one, like dominoes falling. By midnight, every single member of my family had either blocked my number or simply stopped responding. All of them. Every single one. My parents, my 3 sisters, my aunts, uncles, cousins I'd known my entire life. Gone. Just like that. That was almost 10 years ago. The time they needed to process never came. They never called back. I was 22 years old, completely alone, and everyone I'd loved since birth believed I was a monster capable of hurting a child. The first 2 weeks were a blur. I stopped going to my classes. I'd just graduated, but there were some wrap-up things I had to finish. I stopped answering calls from friends. I'd sit in my apartment for hours just staring at my phone, refreshing my messages like maybe this time there would be something. An explanation. An apology. Something. My friends from the gaming session that night kept messaging me asking if I was okay. I couldn't even begin to explain. I stopped eating. Not intentionally, I just forgot. Food tasted like cardboard anyway. I'd open the fridge, stare at it for 5 minutes, then close it and go back to bed. I lost probably 15 pounds in those first few weeks. My clothes started hanging off me. I stopped showering regularly. What was the point? Every single knock on my apartment door made my heart stop. I was waiting for the police. Convinced that any second, there would be a knock and officers with handcuffs ready to arrest me for something I didn't do. I'd lie awake at night playing out the scenario in my head, how I'd be arrested, how I'd have to try to prove my innocence, how even if I was acquitted everyone would always wonder. The accusation alone was enough to destroy a life. I knew that. Everyone knows that. After 2 weeks of complete radio silence from me, my friend Marcus showed up at my apartment. He literally wouldn't leave. He stood outside my door knocking for 20 minutes until I finally opened it, and when he saw me, hollow-eyed, probably smelling terrible, clearly not okay, he pushed past me and sat down on my couch. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded. "You've disappeared. You're not answering anyone. We're all worried sick." I broke down. I mean completely fell apart. And I told him everything. The phone call. The accusation. The exact details Sophia had apparently given. The fact that my entire family had cut me off within hours. I told him I expected him to leave, to decide I was too risky to be around, to ghost me like everyone else. Marcus looked at me for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. If this was true, they would have gone to the police. I blinked at him. "Think about it," he continued. "If your parents genuinely believed you'd assaulted a 9-year-old, they would have filed a police report. They would have pressed charges. The fact that they just cut you off without involving authorities? That tells me they're not sure. Or they know something doesn't add up." It was the first logical thought that had penetrated my brain in 2 weeks. He was right. Wasn't he? If they truly believed Sophia, wouldn't they have gone to the police? Marcus called our friend Sarah, different Sarah, not my sister, and another friend named James. Within 2 hours, all 3 of them were in my apartment, and for the first time since that phone call, I didn't feel completely alone. "If you didn't do it," Marcus said firmly, "then we prove it. We don't just sit here waiting for your life to end. We fight back." And that's exactly what we did. But what we found would end up being both vindication and ammunition for a war I didn't even know I was preparing to fight. We spent the next 2 weeks building a case like we were preparing for an actual trial. My friends helped me pull every photo I had from my college years. We went through social media archives, old hard drives, everything. We created a detailed timeline of where I was during every major family gathering from when Sophia was 9 years old. Then Sarah, my friend Sarah, found something incredible. Wait, she said, her eyes wide on her laptop screen. What year did Sophia say this happened? She said she was 9, so that would have been Christmas 2007. Sarah turned her laptop around to show me. It was an old family video someone had uploaded to Facebook years ago. Christmas morning 2007 at my parents' house. The timestamp was right there in the corner. And as the video played, showing my little cousins running around opening presents, my sisters lounging on the couch, my parents cooking in the kitchen, I wasn't there. Where were you? James asked. I felt my heart start to race as the memory came flooding back. I was at your apartment, Sarah. Remember? You'd just broken up with that guy and didn't want to go home for Christmas, so I stayed with you. We were in the city, like 4 hours away. We had proof. Actual, time-stamped, undeniable proof that I wasn't even in the same town when Sophia claimed I'd assaulted her in my bedroom. My hands were shaking as we kept digging. We found photos from that weekend, me and Sarah at a diner, dated December 24th. A receipt from a movie theater in the city on December 26th with my credit card information. This is it, Marcus said. This proves you couldn't have done it. We take this to a lawyer. That moment felt like hope. Like maybe, just maybe, I could fix this. Like I could present this evidence to my family and they'd realize their mistake and everything could go back to normal. I was naive. I had no idea how much worse things were about to get. The lawyer's office was one of those places that screams money, expensive leather chairs, dark wood paneling, degrees framed on every wall. I'd scraped together $500 for a consultation, which was basically my entire savings at that point. The lawyer, a middle-aged man named Richard Chen, listened to my whole story without interrupting. He looked through every piece of evidence we'd compiled. The timeline. The photos. The video. The receipts. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and sighed. It wasn't a good sigh. Miss Thompson, he said carefully, I understand this is devastating for you. But legally speaking, your hands are completely tied. I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean? We have proof I wasn't even there. Your cousin was a minor when she made the accusation, 15 years old. The alleged incident happened when she was 9, which means it's technically within the statute of limitations for criminal prosecution, but here's the key issue, no one filed a police report. No charges were ever pressed. Your family dealt with this privately. So, that's good, right? That means I'm not in legal trouble? It means you can't be criminally charged at this point, correct? But it also means you have virtually no legal recourse against your cousin for defamation. What about suing her? Or my parents? They've told dozens of people. They've destroyed my reputation. Mr. Chen shook his head slowly. Did your cousin make this accusation publicly? Did she post it on social media? Tell your employer? Make any public statements? No, she told my sister, who told my mom. Then it was a private familial matter. And your cousin was a minor. Minors have extensive legal protections, especially regarding statements made in private family contexts. As for your parents, unless you can prove they made demonstrably false statements about you in a public forum that directly resulted in measurable damages, lost employment, for instance, you don't have grounds for a defamation suit. I felt like I was going to be sick. So she just gets away with it? She destroys my entire life and faces zero consequences? Unless she makes these accusations public, or unless you can prove ongoing defamation with quantifiable damages, yes. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. My advice? Move on. Let it go. Build a new life. I walked out of that office in a daze. I'd spent $500 to be told that justice didn't exist for people like me. That the legal system had nothing to offer someone whose life had been destroyed by a lie, as long as that lie stayed within the family. But if I'd learned anything in those weeks, it was that I wasn't going to just disappear. I wasn't going to let them erase me. That same week, I sent cease and desist letters to every member of my family. It cost me another $300 I didn't have, but I wanted it in writing from a lawyer's office. The letters were simple: if you spread these accusations beyond the family, to my employer, to mutual friends, to anyone in a public capacity, I will pursue legal action for defamation. I will sue you for every penny you have. I have no idea if they ever read them. No one responded. But at least I'd drawn a line in the sand. And then I did something that probably seems crazy to some people. 2 months after my family abandoned me, I started an anonymous blog. I called it The Accused. The tagline was simple: stories from the other side of the accusation. I didn't write about my specific situation, not at first. I wrote about the statistics. About how false accusations, while rare, do happen. About how the presumption of innocence is supposed to be a cornerstone of justice but gets thrown out the window in the court of public opinion. About what happens to people's lives when they're accused of something they didn't do, the isolation, the terror, the impossibility of proving a negative. The blog was anonymous, but I poured everything into it. All the rage, all the helplessness, all the injustice I felt. I wrote at 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. I wrote during lunch breaks at the shitty retail job I'd taken because I couldn't focus enough to apply for real engineering positions. I wrote until my hands cramped and my eyes burned. Within 3 weeks, I had over 10,000 readers. Within 2 months, I was being invited on podcasts to discuss false accusations and due process. Some people called me a hero for defending the falsely accused. Others called me a rape apologist, said I was just another person trying to silence survivors. I didn't care. The rage had to go somewhere, and writing gave it purpose. But writing about it wasn't enough. I needed to know the truth about what my family had done. About whether the accusation had spread beyond what I knew. About whether my name was being destroyed in ways I couldn't even see. So 3 years after that initial phone call, I did something that would change everything. I hired a private investigator. His name was Dennis Park, a former police detective who now did private work. He was expensive, $8,000 for 6 months of work, but I'd been saving every penny from my engineering job by that point, living in the cheapest apartment I could find, eating ramen and canned soup, putting every extra dollar into an envelope labeled Truth. I gave Dennis everything. Names, addresses, social media profiles, timelines. His job was simple: find out how far the accusation had spread, and find out everything he could about Sophia. 6 months later, Dennis called me into his office and slid a thick manila folder across his desk. "You're not going to like what's in here," he said. "But you're going to want to know." The first section detailed exactly how far the accusation had spread. My parents had told at least 30 people. Extended family, obviously. But also family friends, some of my dad's coworkers, people from their church group. My aunt, Sophia's mother, had told her entire book club. The lie had metastasized like cancer, spreading through social networks I didn't even know existed. But that wasn't the worst part. Dennis had found Sophia's college application essays. I don't know how he got them, I didn't ask, but there they were. 3 different essays for 3 different schools, and in 2 of them, Sophia wrote about being a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. She described the trauma, the therapy, the courage it took to come forward. She'd gotten into a prestigious private university partially on the strength of those essays. She'd built her entire identity around being a survivor. Around a lie. There were screenshots of vague social media posts. Some wounds never fully heal. Childhood trauma shapes who we become. Nothing explicit enough to name me, but clearly referencing the accusation. She'd told multiple boyfriends. A therapist. College roommates. She'd taken this lie and made it the cornerstone of who she was. I felt physically sick looking through it all. 10 years of my life destroyed, and she'd gotten scholarships. Sympathy. A built-in explanation for any personal failings. She'd profited from ruining me. But then Dennis showed me something else. Something that made the anger crystallize into something colder. Something more useful. School records from Sophia's middle and high school years. Disciplinary reports. Counselor notes. In 8th grade, Sophia had been caught faking a boyfriend. She'd bought a burner phone and texted herself for months, showing her friends the cute messages she was receiving. It had only come out when one friend got suspicious and called the number, and Sophia answered. In 10th grade, Sophia told her entire friend group that her parents were getting divorced. She gave detailed stories about arguments, about her mom crying, about having to choose which parent to live with. The school counselor had called her parents out of concern, only to discover they were happily married and had no idea what Sophia was talking about. In 11th grade, this one was the worst. Sophia had told her teachers she'd been diagnosed with leukemia. She'd gotten months of deadline extensions, special accommodations, flowers and cards from classmates. The truth only came out when the school requested medical documentation for their records, and Sophia's parents discovered what she'd been saying. The counselor's notes were damning. Student shows pattern of attention-seeking behavior through fabrication of dramatic personal circumstances. Repeated instances of elaborate falsehoods told to elicit sympathy. Recommend psychological evaluation. Sophia was a pathological liar. This wasn't new behavior. This wasn't a one-time mistake. She had a documented history of inventing traumas and crises for attention. And my family had believed her without question. Without investigation. Without even considering that maybe, just maybe, she'd done this before. I sat in Dennis's office for 2 hours, going through every page. When I finally looked up, I asked him, "What do I do with this?" He shrugged. "That's up to you. But if it were me, I'd hold on to it. Because liars like her always slip up eventually. And when she does, you'll want to be ready. I took the folder home and put it in a banker's box. Added it to the Christmas video, the timeline, the photos, all the evidence I'd been collecting. I labeled the box Sophia and put it in my bedroom closet. And then I waited. People thought I was crazy. Marcus asked me multiple times why I didn't just confront my family with all this evidence. Why I didn't force the issue. But I knew something he didn't. I knew that if I came to them now, desperate and angry, they'd find a way to dismiss it. They'd say the school records were irrelevant. They'd say I'd fabricated the evidence out of spite. They'd twist themselves into knots to avoid admitting they'd been wrong. No. I needed to wait for Sophia to hang herself. Because if there's one thing pathological liars can't help, it's lying. And eventually, the lies collapse under their own weight. So I built a life. I got promoted once, then twice. I moved into a better apartment, then bought a small condo. I started powerlifting, found that throwing heavy weights around was a good outlet for rage that couldn't go anywhere else. I competed in local competitions, got pretty decent at it. I dated casually. Kept my walls up. When people asked about my family, I had a rehearsed answer: we're estranged. Inheritance dispute. Pretty boring stuff. Most people didn't push. To the outside world, I looked successful. Put together. Healed. But every night, that box sat in my closet. Waiting. Years 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They blurred together. I was 27, then 28, then 29, then 30. The blog kept growing. I'd become a semi-prominent voice in false accusation advocacy circles, always anonymous, always careful. I testified at a state legislature hearing about the need for better investigative procedures before accusations were acted upon. I helped other people navigate the social aftermath of being falsely accused. But my own family remained ghosts. Blocked numbers. Returned letters. Complete silence. I'd almost accepted it. Almost made peace with the idea that they were gone forever and I'd just have to build a life without them. And then, year 10, my phone rang. Dennis Park. I hadn't heard from him in years, the investigation had ended, the final report delivered. But I'd kept his number, and apparently he'd kept mine. Alicia, he said when I answered. I've got news. You're going to want to sit down for this. Sophia had gotten engaged 6 months ago. Dennis had been casually monitoring her social media. He did that sometimes for old clients, kept loose tabs on key players. The engagement party had happened the previous weekend. According to Dennis's source, and I still don't know who that source was, Sophia's future mother-in-law had given a toast at the party. One of those sentimental speeches about family being everything, about how marriage is built on honesty and trust, about building a life on a foundation of truth. Sophia had gotten visibly emotional during the speech. Left the party early. That night, back at the apartment she shared with her fiancé, she'd broken down completely. Started sobbing. And in what her fiancé would later describe as a full emotional collapse, Sophia confessed everything. She admitted she'd made up the accusation about me. Said she'd been jealous of the attention I got from our grandparents. Thought that if she told a dramatic story, I'd get in trouble for a week or two, maybe get grounded or something. She never imagined the family would cut me off completely. Never imagined it would become this permanent, life-destroying thing. She said she'd tried to confess multiple times over the years but was too scared. The lie had grown too big. She'd built too much of her identity around it. She didn't know how to take it back without destroying herself. Her fiancé was horrified. Absolutely horrified. He immediately called his mother, the lawyer, who told him in no uncertain terms that he needed to inform my family immediately or she would do it herself. 3 days ago, Sophia's fiancé had called my parents and told them everything. Your father's been trying to call you, Dennis said. Multiple times over the past few days. But I'm guessing you blocked them years ago, so the calls aren't getting through. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, feeling absolutely nothing. 10 years. 10 fucking years of waiting, and the truth had finally come out. Not because of anything I'd done. Not because my family had investigated or had second thoughts. But because Sophia's new mother-in-law had given a speech about honesty at an engagement party. That's what it took. A speech about honesty. There's one more thing, Dennis said. Your father sent you an email this morning. Just a heads up. I checked my email after we hung up. There it was. Subject line, we need to talk. I stared at it for 7 days. I'm not exaggerating. 7 full days. I could see the subject line in my inbox. I knew what it probably said. But I didn't open it. Because for the first time in 10 years, I had all the power. They needed me. They wanted something from me. And I could make them wait the way I'd been made to wait. On day 7, I finally opened it. The email was 3 paragraphs. Short, considering it was supposed to account for a decade of abandonment. Alicia, Sophia has confessed that she made everything up. We were wrong. Horribly, unforgivably wrong. We don't expect you to forgive us, but we want to try to make this right. Please, can we see you? Can we talk? We need to see you. Your mother hasn't stopped crying since we found out. Please. Mom and Dad. I read it 3 times. Then I typed a response. 1 sentence. Forward this email to every single person you told about the accusation. Then we'll talk. I hit send and closed my laptop. My father responded within an hour. We will do that. We'll contact everyone. But please, Alicia, can we just see you first? Your mother is devastated. We need to see you. I wrote back 1 word, no. Then I added, do what I asked. When that's done, we'll see about the rest. Over the next month, my email inbox slowly filled up with messages. Aunts I hadn't heard from in a decade. Uncles. Family friends. My parents' coworkers. My aunt's book club members. One by one, they sent me messages. Your parents told me what really happened. I'm so sorry I believed them. I can't imagine what you've been through. Please accept my apology. We were told a lie. I'm so sorry for my part in spreading it. 38 messages in total. 38 people my family had told I was a child predator. 38 apologies for believing I was capable of something monstrous. Only when the last message arrived, from my aunt, Sophia's mother, a groveling apology that went on for 3 paragraphs, did I respond to my father's email. I'll meet with you. But not at home. Not anywhere private. We meet in my lawyer's office with my attorney present. These are my terms. Accept them or don't. My father responded in under 5 minutes. We accept. Whatever you need. When? We scheduled it for the following week. I spent those 7 days preparing. Comment below right now, what would you do in this situation? Would you even give them the meeting? Because what I was about to do next, not everyone would agree with. The meeting was set for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. I arrived early, carrying the banker's box I'd been building for 10 years. My attorney, Claire Morrison, was already there. I'd hired her a week before, paid her a $5,000 retainer to represent me in this meeting and whatever came after. My parents arrived at exactly 2 p.m. I watched them through the glass door of the conference room as they checked in with the receptionist. They'd aged a decade in 10 years. My mother's hair had gone almost completely gray. My father walked with a slight hunch that hadn't been there before. When they entered the conference room, my mother's face crumpled immediately. She rushed toward me, arms outstretched for a hug. I stepped back and held up one hand. Sit down. The movement stopped her cold. She looked like I'd slapped her. Please, sweetheart, she started. Sit down, I repeated. We're doing this my way. They sat. My father couldn't even look at me. My mother was already crying, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No sadness. Just cold, focused determination. I lifted the banker's box onto the conference table with a heavy thud. Both my parents stared at it. Before we talk about anything else, I said, my voice perfectly calm, you're going to look at what's in this box. Because this is what you should have looked for 10 years ago. This is the investigation you should have done before you decided I was guilty. I opened the box. For the next 2 hours, I walked them through everything. Every piece of evidence. Every document. Every photo. I started with the Christmas video from 2007. Made them watch it. Made them see that I wasn't there. Showed them the receipts and photos proving I was 4 hours away in the city. This, I said, proves that on the specific day Sophia claimed I assaulted her in my bedroom, I wasn't even in the same town. You could have checked this. You could have asked me where I was that Christmas. You never did. My mother was sobbing openly now. My father's hands were shaking on the table. I pulled out the timeline next. Showed them every family gathering from the year Sophia was between 8 and 10. Showed them photo evidence of where I was, who I was with, what I was doing. None of it matched Sophia's story. Then I pulled out the PI report. The thick stack of pages detailing how many people they'd told. Who had spread it further. How far the accusation had metastasized. Did you know, I asked conversationally, that at least 38 people were told I'm a child predator? Did you know that Dad's coworker mentioned it to someone in his industry network, and it nearly cost me a job interview 3 years ago when someone recognized my name? Did you know that? My father made a choking sound. Didn't answer. And this, I said, pulling out Sophia's school records, is what you would have found if you'd done even the most basic investigation into your niece's credibility. I laid out every disciplinary report. Every counselor's note. The fake boyfriend. The fake divorce. The fake cancer diagnosis. Your niece is a pathological liar, I said flatly. She has been her entire life. Teachers documented it. Counselors recommended psychiatric evaluation. This information was available. You never looked. My mother was hyperventilating now, her face in her hands. My father finally looked up at me, and the expression on his face was something I'd never seen before. Complete devastation. We didn't know, he whispered. We didn't. You didn't want to know, I cut him off. You made your decision in a matter of hours and spent 10 years refusing to question it. You chose to believe a 15-year-old with a documented history of lying over your own daughter. The silence in that conference room was absolute. Claire, my attorney, sat quietly beside me, taking notes, saying nothing. Finally, my mother looked up. Her face was streaked with tears, her eyes red and swollen. How do we make this right? She asked, her voice breaking. Please, Alicia, tell us how to make this right. I pulled out a typed document. Slid it across the table. You don't make it right, I said. You can't. You can't give me back 10 years. You can't undo the trauma. You can't repair the relationships I didn't form because I couldn't trust anyone. But you can start by meeting my terms. They read the document in complete silence. I'd spent 3 days writing it with Claire's help, refining every word. 5 requirements. Non-negotiable. First, they would pay for 5 years of therapy for me. Prepaid. $200 per session, weekly. That was $52,000. They'd write the check to my therapist's practice directly. Second, they would provide me with a formal, notarized written apology that acknowledged they were wrong, that they failed to investigate, and that they caused immeasurable harm. This document would be legally binding and could be used in any future legal proceedings if necessary. Third, they would donate $50,000 to the National False Accusation Advocacy Center in my name. I wanted my name on a donor wall. I wanted something permanent that showed I'd turned this nightmare into something that might help others. Fourth, Sophia would be cut off from the family completely until she completed a comprehensive psychiatric evaluation and whatever treatment program was recommended. My parents would inform the entire family that anyone who maintained contact with Sophia would also be cut off. She would face real consequences for what she'd done. Fifth, we would rebuild contact slowly. Email only for 6 months. Then phone calls. Then, maybe, in-person meetings. But every stage was contingent on me being comfortable. They didn't get to push. They didn't get to demand. This would happen on my timeline or not at all. My mother was sobbing so hard she could barely read the document. My father got through it with tears streaming down his face. What about forgiveness? My mother managed to ask. Can you ever forgive us? I looked at her for a long moment. Maybe in 5 years. Maybe in 10. Maybe never. But those are my terms. Accept them or walk away right now. There was no hesitation. My father pulled out a pen. We'll do all of it, he said. Every single thing. Whatever you need. They signed the document. Claire notarized it. My father wrote 2 checks right there, one for the therapy, one for the donation. My mother could barely hold a pen steady enough to add her signature. When it was done, I stood up. No hug. No emotional reconciliation. Just a formal handshake with my father that felt like a business transaction. Because that's what it was. This wasn't forgiveness. This wasn't healing. This was accountability. I walked out of that conference room carrying the box of evidence that had taken me 10 years to build. Behind me, I could hear my mother still crying. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not revenge, not relief. Just a cold sense that I'd finally stopped being powerless. They completed every requirement within 6 weeks. The check for therapy cleared. The donation was made. I got a letter from the National False Accusation Advocacy Center thanking me for my generous contribution. My name went up on their donor wall. The notarized apology arrived in the mail, all official and legal and permanent. I started therapy with a woman named Dr. Chen who specialized in trauma and family estrangement. Twice a week at first, then weekly once I stabilized. She didn't try to push me toward forgiveness. She just helped me process 10 years of hell. Email contact with my parents began exactly 6 months after the meeting. Stilted at first. Awkward. Surface-level updates about jobs and weather and nothing real. But slowly, over months, something started to shift. Not healing, it wasn't healing. But maybe the very beginning of whatever comes before healing. Like how a bone has to be set before it can mend, and it's painful and wrong before it starts to get better. My sisters reached out, one by one. Emma first, with a long email that was mostly groveling apologies. I responded after a week. Kept it brief. Sarah next, similar email, similar response. Rachel, my youngest sister, I wasn't ready for yet. Didn't respond. Maybe someday. Sophia wrote me a letter. It arrived at my apartment. My parents must have given her my address, which was a violation of our terms, but I let it slide. The letter was 5 pages long, handwritten, full of apologies and explanations about her mental health struggles and how she'd gotten trapped in the lie and couldn't find a way out. I put it in a drawer. Didn't read past the first page. Didn't respond. That letter is still sitting there, unopened after 2 months. Maybe I'll read it someday. Maybe I won't. 9 months after that meeting in the lawyer's office, my father sent an email asking if I'd be willing to meet them for coffee. Just coffee. A public place. Nothing heavy. I stared at that email for 2 days. Dr. Chen and I talked about it in session. She asked me what I wanted. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to keep them at arm's length forever. Part of me. I trailed off. Part of you what? Part of me is tired of being alone. So I said yes to coffee. We met at a neutral cafe halfway between my place and theirs. I arrived first, sat in a corner booth where I could see the door. My hands were shaking as I waited. They walked in together, and for a moment I just stared at these people who used to be my parents. They looked older. Smaller somehow. Fragile. The greeting was awkward. I stood up. My mother reached for a hug. I extended my hand instead. We shook hands like strangers. My father did the same. We sat down. Ordered coffee. Made small talk about the weather, about my drive over, about nothing important. Then my mother started crying again. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Alicia. Every day I think about what we did to you and I just..." "Mom." I kept my voice level. "I know you're sorry. You've said it 100 times. But I need you to understand something. I don't know if I'm ever going to feel okay around you again. I don't know if we're ever going to have what we had before. That's just reality." She nodded, wiping her eyes. My father cleared his throat. "Tell us about your life," he said. "We've missed so much. We'd like to know how you've been. What you've been doing." And slowly, painfully, I told them. About my promotions. About buying the condo. About powerlifting. About the blog, which I'd finally told them about in an email weeks before. About the advocacy work I did, always anonymously, always careful. I didn't tell them about the nights I'd spent planning revenge. About the year I'd drunk too much and thought about hurting people. About how I still had panic attacks sometimes when I saw families together at restaurants, wondering if I'd ever have that again. But I told them enough. We sat in that cafe for 90 minutes. It was awkward. Painful. Every silence felt heavy. But we sat there. When it was time to leave, my mother asked, "Can we do this again?" I hesitated. "Maybe. I'll let you know." We walked to our separate cars in silence. No hugs goodbye. Just a wave. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before starting the engine, just processing. I didn't feel happy. Didn't feel relieved. But I felt something I hadn't expected. I felt like maybe there was a version of the future where I wasn't completely alone. It's been almost a year now since that first coffee meeting. We've had 3 more since then. They're still awkward. Still painful. But each one is slightly less terrible than the last. My sisters and I text occasionally. Emma and Sarah more than Rachel. We're not close. We may never be close again. But the lines of communication are open. Sophia is apparently in intensive therapy. Last I heard from my mother, she'd been diagnosed with some combination of personality disorders, narcissistic and histrionic, I think. She's on medication. Working with a psychiatrist. She wrote me 2 more letters. Both still sit unopened in my drawer. I'm dating someone now. Met her at a powerlifting competition. She's the first person I've let get close in years. We've been together for 4 months, and last week I told her about my family. About what happened. She listened to the whole story without interrupting, and when I finished, she just held my hand and said, "I'm glad you survived that. Life isn't fixed. I still see Dr. Chen weekly. I still have bad days where the anger comes roaring back and I want to burn everything down. I still wake up sometimes from dreams where I'm screaming at my family and they can't hear me. But life is better. Measurably, quantifiably better than it was. I think that's all I can ask for right now. So if you're still with me after this whole story, thank you for listening. If this resonated with you, if you've ever been falsely accused, or cut off from family, or felt like the world decided you were guilty without a trial, leave a comment. Tell me your story. You're not alone. And if there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's this: don't let people who wronged you control the terms of reconciliation. Don't accept empty apologies. Don't let them rush you into forgiveness because it makes them feel better. You get to set the terms. You get to decide the timeline. You get to protect yourself first. Sophia destroyed 10 years of my life with a lie. My family chose to believe her without investigation. They cut me off without a trial. And when the truth finally came out, not because they investigated, not because they had doubts, but because Sophia finally cracked under pressure, they wanted instant forgiveness. They didn't get it. They had to earn every single inch of access back to my life. And honestly, that feels like justice. Not perfect justice. Not Hollywood ending justice. But real, messy, complicated justice where the victims get to set the terms. So yeah, that's my story. That's where I am now. Life isn't perfect. I'm not healed. But I'm not that terrified 22-year-old sitting alone in her apartment waiting for police to arrest her for something she didn't do. I'm 31. I have a career. A home. Someone who cares about me. A family I'm slowly, carefully rebuilding on my terms. And that box of evidence? Still in my closet. Just in case. Because I learned something important over these 10 years, document everything. Keep receipts. Protect yourself. Because the truth matters, even when it takes a decade to come out. If this resonated with you, hit that like button. Comment your story because knowing you're not alone makes a difference. Subscribe for more stories. Thanks for listening. See you in the next one.